How is it halfway through the year? I don't know about you, but my systems, my goals, they need a little TLC. So come along with me while I show you my updated quarterly review process. Actually sitting here over in my rearranged apartment. I did a little bit of rearranging recently. My bed's now on the other side of this. I'm actually loving it because check out my view from my couch. I know, right? Pretty stinking pretty. But with that, if you are new here, welcome. If you are not, welcome back. Yeah, I said that right. I literally had to think about it. And I just wanted to do something productive with my evening tonight. So I was gonna do my quarterly review tomorrow morning as I record this. And I decided, why not now? Why not do it now? I'm watching voicemails for Isabel for the second time, and it seems like it's time for me to make a game plan for the next quarter because we're getting our shit together. I certainly am. And if you want to come along with me in my new process, keep on watching. Let me start by saying why I am revamping my systems. I see so much stuff online about 12-week year, 12-week year this, 12-week year that. I used to do the 12-week year, but I didn't want to have to create a completely separate system from the one I already use because I'm so used to it and it's been working for me pretty freaking well up until this point. So I really wanted to try to adapt my current systems to the 12-week year. So that is really what I'm doing in this video. And as I'm walking you through some of the changes I've made to my quarterly review process, but trying to bring more 12-week year processes, terminology, etc. into it. The other thing I've been noticing is I have a tendency to very much, or the ADHD just kicked in hard and there was something on my desk that I needed to move and it was a problem. But I wanted to really make sure that I wasn't overscheduling myself this year and that I was doing a better job at just like staying on top of the goals that I had set for that given quarter of my life. So I did a fair amount of YouTube binging, took some ideas from various different places, and this is what I came up with. So I'm gonna walk you through the new template, kind of how I used it, what I came up with for this quarter, and if there's anything that you want to apply to yourself or want to see me dive deeper into, do not forget to comment down below and I'd be happy to do that. But let's go ahead and get into it. Also, is it just me or are the headphones becoming like a part of my brand? I put them on just so people understand why I literally always have these white headphones on. Sorry, I'm spinning in my chair. Mostly because of the fact that I am very easily sidetracked by background noise. So I headphone up constantly in my apartment, even though I live in a pretty quiet place, but I headphone up constantly because I just get so distracted by the small noises. So hence these. And I had to find like the comfiest pair of headphones in existence. These are Bose Quiet Comfort headphones. I got them on Prime Day like 3-4 years ago. I love them. Most comfortable headphones ever. Okay, so this is the quarterly review and I'll actually walk you through the template and then I will walk you through the entire review that I just did the other day. So I always start by customizing the template and I basically started off with just like general envisioning and wheel of life. So with this wheel of life, I've actually used this button system for a majority of things in a lot of my review processes, KPI check-in, stuff like that, where basically what it does is it's linked to a check-in database, but when I click this button, it creates a new page in that check-in database that is linked back to this area that I can use to score it. And I have kind of some guardrails on how I score these different parts of my life, just because I find otherwise that my scoring is very dependent on mood. So this is actually, I'm gonna delete this page because I already did this check-in, but this is actually a part of the process that I've been doing for a while. If you watched any of my recent weekly reviews, you see that I do this at the end of every week. And I mostly use this check-in as a way to just kind of see where I'm at. And I use the one that I did in the most recent weekly review when I'm doing my quarterly review. Then I've got my reading notes. So this is something that I was inspired to do. I can't remember whose YouTube video I was watching that inspired me to do this. If I think of it, I will link it down below because I did get a lot of ideas from that YouTube video. But I liked the idea of being able to go over here and just kind of see where I was at these various different times when I was giving myself my highest scores and where I was at giving myself some of my lowest scores. So this is kind of a nice snapshot of when I was doing well, where was I at? When I wasn't doing well, where was I at? We can see which one has the lowest score historically. And then over here, I can see my goals and my projects by area. So I can see, okay, my average rating here is this, and this is how many goals I have happening in that area right now. So this is kind of a little check-in that I do. And then I also with that do a 10-year vision and a 3-year vision. I ask myself various different questions for those parts of the vision. So this is like an envisioning. This really hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot. Then the next thing I try to do is set my intention for the quarter. You can see my intention for this quarter, and that's going to display on the quarterly page. But this is where I really started to change a lot of the process. Firstly, I went and I said, okay, you got to set your 3 goals. And I'm trying to limit myself to setting 3 goals. I use the OKR goal setting system. So I set kind of an overarching goal/objective. I use those interchangeably. And then underneath that goal, there might be key results that I'm aiming toward, or like sub projects that support that overarching goal. So I start by setting my 3 goals. And I really like doing like this whole envisioning intention setting first before I set those goals to just kind of make sure the goals are aligned. And then after I set the goals, I go in and I want to break the goal down into projects. So you can kind of see here, I've got several projects that are parked, projects that are client projects that are active. And then I've got projects underneath each goal. Now I define a project as something that has multiple, like it's something that's longer term that has multiple steps underneath it. So that's what all of these are. So I'll go in, I'll define what my projects are. And then once I define what the projects are, I can create habits and goals for the project underneath it. And you can see here, I can see this quarter's projects, client projects, and then a weekly breakdown, which I'm going to go into that a little bit more when I show you the example from this quarter. And then after I do all of that at the top here, I can see this quarter's goals, an overview of my goals, and then the breakdown by the week. I also have a content planning section down here. It is hidden because I'm not really doing content planning like that right now. I might be later, but the idea being I can review kind of my numbers for my content and then make adjustments for the upcoming quarter's content. But I buried that under a toggle because I'm not doing that right now. And then once I do all of that planning, I will mark it as planned. And if the quarter's already started, I'll mark it as in progress. So this is the part of the process that really changed. And I really want to emphasize the planning part of the process because I think this is where I generally go wrong and almost don't do enough breaking down of my projects as I am planning for a new quarter. So now that we've got a feel for like the planning part of the template, let's actually look into the Q3 template. So like I said, I went in and did all of my envisioning. So I've got all of this here, my rating notes, I can see my goals and my projects. And then this was also, I kind of found as I was doing my reflections, I wanted to see my scores over time and how those were doing. And this was kind of a nice snapshot. I filled in my trends, my 10-year and 3-year vision. So I've got all sorts of answers underneath there, which we won't go into. And then setting my intention for the quarter, which is really to me about stabilizing and just kind of building something that's more sustainable on my health, my business, etc. And then my 3 goals for this quarter are to build Sunday CEO authority through consistent content, get healthy AF, and level up my hobbies. So I tried to make sure that my goals were spread out across different life areas, and then having a description for these different categories. So like this one, even though it's about consistent content creation, it's larger than that in terms of kind of trying to grow my business through content. So those are my 3 goals. And these last 2, I think, is really where things start to get so nitty gritty and allow me to feel so stinking prepared for this quarter. I can't even put it into words. Breaking down my goals into projects. So I actually did 2 things with this. Firstly, I've got like my client projects up here, which I didn't associate with an objective. And then down here, I have got my projects that are associated with the objective. And I have this place over here where I can prioritize my projects. Now, I went through and I audited a lot of my projects. I trimmed down a lot of my projects. And then I also went through and identified what my priorities were for these projects. And I can actually tell you right now, let's move my face out of the way. I used AI a lot to help me do this. And you can actually see if I get into this AI chat here, that I told it to look at my reel of life check-ins, help me set my primary goals. And then I actually got down here and I was like, I want you to go through my projects master list and identify what projects are applicable to these goals and perhaps which projects I might want to create. I also kind of with this, we did a little, what projects should I get rid of? And you will see I had 3 goals above. If I go up here, I had 3 goals up here. The level, get healthy AF is really not about tasks, like day-to-day tasks. It's more about habits. So you'll see more habit related things under that and not so much tasks. But I went through and I broke out all of these projects. And after I broke out the projects, the next big part, and this was the part that probably took the longest chunk of time, was me breaking down these projects into quarters, into, weeks, what tasks I was going to do every single week, so on and so forth. So I went in here, and we'll get rid of that one. This is just something I had to pop back up because I have a photo shoot next week and all of the notes for it are on there, and then I can delete this project. But in here, I was able to go in and kind of establish some prioritization with these projects. Now you might be like, hey, Ellen, why are there so few projects here when there was like so many up here? A lot of these projects are actually like sub projects of like school migration or of, so a lot of these were sub projects, which is why when we go here, let's collapse that down, there's a lot fewer projects. So I really only have 4 main projects for this one and 2 main projects for this one that I'm working on here. So I went in here and then I've got my client projects, but I went into each of these and I actually had my AI agent over here help me not only create tasks for these projects, but help me find priorities for these projects. So we went through and I literally chatted with the AI agent and I was just like, okay, this is what I've got going up. This is kind of what my goals are right now. Which projects do you feel like are the highest priority projects? And it helped me kind of prioritize them. So you can see here, it's got 38 days to go, 89 days to go, 181 days to go. These are all related to, if I pop open one of the projects, their due date, when this project is due. So, and actually, I don't know why that says not started because it is started. So that's when this project is due. And so we went through and we prioritized all of them. This is the most important project, then this project right here. And this one's the most important because I lose access to this at the end of the year. This is in September. And these are things that I want to complete to kind of reinforce this goal, but like aren't as important for me to complete. So we prioritized all of these, and then I went through and I had it help me actually like create the to-dos. So I might need to scroll a bit for this. So like we created the to-dos that go along with these projects. And the nice thing about doing this, like for some of these, I already had these to-dos created, but the nice thing about doing this with the AI is it can also create the tasks for you. So we created a lot of tasks yesterday. And then I went in and I did 2 things. I like literally went in and for every single task, I assigned a due date to it based on when the due date is for the project. So that was one thing here. So actually I probably need to adjust this to be end of August instead of August 10th. So these are all kind of based on the due date for the project. And then this was the other thing that I did. I associated it with a week, and you're going to see why I did that in just a second. It's really, really helpful for kind of like the snapshot overview. But I literally went through and I scheduled out all of these tasks given the due date for the project and kind of what I am aiming for. Now, one thing I will say about that, I am the kind of person that I treat to-do lists as these are potential things that I could do with my day. I'm not somebody who's like super rigid and hard and fast about like, if I get a task done on Monday that was scheduled on Monday, I'm not going to beat myself up if I do it on Wednesday or if I do it the following Monday, because that's the thing with entrepreneurship is a lot of our deadlines are actually kind of arbitrary. They are self-imposed deadlines, but not necessarily official deadlines that have to be in place unless it's like client work or something like that. So I do all of this and perhaps overschedule and overplan a little bit, but what I like about doing it is it gives me peace of mind in terms of how am I spreading out my tasks, or am I overloading anything like too much into August or too much into September or anything like that. So I go through, I break down all of these into tasks and sub projects. I break them, I assign them due dates. And then when I go over here to the weekly breakdown, this is actually the first time I've ever done something like this. And actually I have another view of it that I like even more, is each week is I kind of broke the 12-week year up into quarters in and of itself. And you will see that some of the weeks show up in multiple places, but each of these get broken up into quarters. So we have 3 weeks here. Week 29 shows up here and here. And then we've got these next 3 weeks, these next 3 weeks, so on and so forth. It gets a little bit, so it's not necessarily 3 weeks per quarter, purely because like this full week isn't July and this full week isn't September. There's a little bit of October in this week. So I wanted to make sure I was counting everything from the start to finish. And you can see how the task breakdown kind of works out here. So I have a lot of actions assigned here. I probably have too many actions assigned here. I have a lot of actions assigned here. So it kind of gives me a feel for, am I overloading myself anywhere? Now, part of the reason I loaded a lot into here and here is because I have a massive school migration I'm trying to do before July 21st. But if those things don't happen, they can easily get nudged into August. I can give myself an extra month to do that school migration. And you can see it really doesn't mess anything up. The only reason why these first few weeks have so much on them is because of the fact that I'm doing that school migration. So I do all of this planning, and then when I'm done, I not only have my goals for the quarter, I have an overview of those goals so I can see how many tasks are associated with this goal. So clearly the most intensive goal is this one right here. And then I can see my breakdown by week. And actually, I really like this view for my breakdown by week, so I can see how many of my tasks I have completed and how many tasks are assigned that week. And it makes it very, very easy for me to pop in here. And so now when I pop into each of these weeks, so for example, this is the current week right here, then I can actually do my like full-blown planning for like when I'm gonna do each of these weeks. And I've gone into this planning process a little bit before. I'll go ahead and link the video where I kind of showed the breakdown of this planning process. And if I didn't post that video yet, I will post that video. But I have this whole planning process now that I found is really, really helpful for me to make sure I'm not overcommitting myself every day, where I kind of go through my tasks, add in how much I estimate the time will be versus how much it actually is. So I'm decently accurate with a lot of these, and so on and so forth. So it allows me to just like really, really make sure I'm not over scheduling myself. So I really like a lot of the changes that I've made to this process. I feel like I haven't over scheduled myself. I have a very, very clear picture of what's coming. Everything's scheduled out. And I think it's gonna really, really help me make sure that I am staying on top of my goals moving forward. And I'm really excited to see how it all turns out. So, and yeah, when I click into this objective, I can see everything that's happening, and I can see kind of the main projects that I'm working on that support this. So completing Inbox Hero, but the most important one is Strong Brand Social, then the summit, learning YouTube SEO, and then completing this course. So I can see all of those here, my progress toward those, and then all of the tasks down here, which is super, super helpful to just be able to see all this. So I don't know, I feel like I'm going into Q3 like more prepared than I ever have. Ooh, and actually last thing I want to show you, I also recorded another video previously where I talked about my home base, and I brought a lot of what I did for that quarterly planning into kind of an overview on my home base here, which I really love. So I can see, hey, this is the quarter you're in. This is the intention for this quarter. This is the week you're in currently, and this is how you're doing in that week. This is your task progress, and this is filtered to show the things that are due this week. So it's not showing me all of my tasks because that would be crazy. I can see the time breakdown. So I added a couple of things where I can see how far are we through the year, how far are we through the quarter, and then I can see my time spent working on things this week, which this is also, it's actually not filtered. I just started using a new time tracking inside of Notion, which go ahead and drop a comment down below if you'd like to see me break that down. It's my favorite way of time tracking I've ever done. I used to use like Toggle and all of these other things, and having it in Notion is so much easier. And I can really see, like, I actually should probably add a little widget that's like a little circular one like this, so I can see what's my time breakdown over the course of the week and what did I spend the majority of my week working on. I'm literally going to do that as soon as I'm done recording this video. Now this nice little overview here where I can see kind of a breakdown of everything. And then this home base page, like I've shared before, is like the page that I work off of the vast majority of the time. So this is what I see when I log in the morning. I pop over here and I do my like habit tracking and writing in my journal. And then I go over here to get shit done. And that's how we get shit done. And you can see this is the in progress task. This is how much time I've spent working today. And so then when I'm done recording this and working on this, we're gonna go ahead and click end and we're good to go. But all right, friends, well, that is it. That is my quarterly planning process. I kind of tried to bring the 12-week year into it a little bit more. So if you've got any questions on anything, do not forget to comment below. If you're liking what you're seeing here, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm also making some changes and revamps to my community. So if you are in the school community, watch out for some more information about that. And I've got some stuff coming that's gonna be a really, really easy way for me to support you and for you to learn more about Notion, how I'm using my Notion system, so on and so forth. So keep your eyes peeled. Lots of stuff's going to be happening this summer in the Coach Ellen world. But with that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.